Wonderful. So I'm Shanice Mitchell-Cox. I work for APMG International and I am introducing the event today. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, where you're watching from and your name. We will engage in conversation with you and put some polls up as well throughout the event. So pop where you're watching from today and it would be great to get to know you. I'm just going to hand over to Ellie now, who's going to introduce today's event.
Thank you, Shanice. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ellie Bowett, Channel Innovation Director at APMG International, and your host for today's webinar, which is entitled Challenge Your Perspective on ITSM Best Practices. I'm genuinely excited to be here with you today as we embark on an insightful journey together. Before we delve into our main discussion, let's take a moment to understand why challenging our perspective is crucial in today's dynamic IT landscape. The field is ever-changing and ever-evolving, and what worked yesterday may not be optimal for tomorrow. Embracing change, exploring new possibilities, and challenging the status quo are fundamental elements for staying ahead of this rapidly changing environment. Our webinar today promises to be an eye-opener, catering to both seasoned IT professionals and those who are just beginning their journey in IT service management. So let's get started by gauging what your current awareness of FitSM as a product is. You should see a poll appearing now. How familiar are you with FitSM? Is today the first time you're hearing about the product? Or have you been using it for a while and getting the benefits of implementing it? Or perhaps somewhere in between? Let us know. Over the next 40 minutes, we have the privilege of learning from industry experts who bring a wealth of experience to the table. Joining us today are two distinguished speakers, each offering a unique perspective on IT service management and FitSM adoption. First up, from KPMG Denmark, we have Berger, an accomplished IT professional with over 2 decades of experience. Mats has proven track record of driving innovation and optimizing ITSM practices in various organizations. Today, he will share his insight on how FitSM can reshape our approach to IT service management. We're also very pleased to welcome Valerie Kristoffersen from Dovista. Valerie's expertise lies in seamlessly integrating ITSM frameworks into organizational workflows, ensuring efficiency and alignment with business objectives. In today's session, she'll provide practical insights from Dovista's journey in adopting FitSM, shedding light on the real-world impact of this flexible framework. Throughout the webinar, Mats and Valerie will share their experiences, challenges, success stories, offering you valuable perspectives on the adoption of FitSM in diverse IT environments. Get ready for an enriching discussion that has the potential to reshape the way you think about ITSM best practices. Okay, as we delve into the content today, I encourage you to actively engage with Mats, Valerie, and our broader community through the chat and Q&A features. Let's make the most of this opportunity to learn from these experts and collectively challenge your perspective on ITSM. We'll be coming to our questions later on in the event, so please do get them into the Q&A space so we can pick them up and put them to our presenters. Thanks very much for joining us today. Let's dive in and get started. Over to you, Mats.
Thank you so much, Ellie, and thank you all for taking time today to look into FitSM and what it is, and then also taking the use case with Dovista to understand how FitSM can be used in an organization. So happy to see you or to be here and be able to present. And let's just kick it off with a general introduction. So most of you probably just heard about FitSM or maybe not even know what it is. So this is just a very, very short introduction to FitSM. So it stands for Federated IT Service Management. It is a lightweight standard with a very, very emphasis on lightweight, aimed at supporting the implementation of IT service management, including federated scenarios. So this picture tries to show that very often in traditional IT service management, we focus on one customer towards very specific service providers, whereas we see more and more that the ecosystem also involves various business units in a customer organization and various service providers that supply services to one business unit or to more. And it's this much more complex federated approach that FitSM is aimed at helping us with for IT service management. And there are also some key principles around FitSM that I'd like to emphasize for you. It is that the approach builds on that it is practical, that it is consistent, that it is sufficient, and also possible to extend. And just some short notes on these four key principles that I really loved from the start when I got to know about FitSM is the practicality, that it is simple, proven guidance instead of drowning down into theoretical best practices, trying to find the one and only solution. That it is consistent, so it's a repeatable performance all the way through the process. That it is sufficient, that it somehow is good enough. It's good enough and it's working. It's lightweight, except instead of seeking the perfect solution. And finally, the extendability. It leverages many sources of knowledge, but mainly you can see very much of ITIL in version 2, as we know it from the 2000 decade, and also the ISO 20000 standard. Those are the two main sources of inspiration for FitSM. So that's very much what FitSM in a nutshell on a slide. And I'll also then, before we look forward to Dovista, what is then the training and qualification program? So what you see is that when it comes to training and qualification, it's quite easy and nice overview. There's a foundation level, which is 1 day where you do both the training and the exam for foundation in FitSM. And then you can, as individual, move on to the advanced level, going either for the service planning and delivery, which more the tactical processes like service level management, service reporting, capacity, and those kind of processes, or to do the service operation and control with processes like incident, request, problem, change. And of course, you can do both of those as well. And at the advanced level, you have the at the expert level, you have the expert training, 2 days, or if you actually already are certified within ITIL, like ITIL expert in version 3, or being within ISO 20000, being an auditor there, then of course you can also do a bridge into the expert level. It is APMG, our partner in crime here, that of course stands for the certification program. We in KPMG are delivering training to our clients within all these levels, but doing it within the projects that we deliver on. So if there's anyone out there on this call being a training provider in the Nordics and looking for providing classroom training, we're more than happy to say this is a good one for you. Please invest time and market it across, because we think it has a great potential for the Nordics. So that's the very short on the FitSM training and qualification program. And then we just want to show you a bit what is in it. So again, it is a lightweight, but it's also an open source. So it comes from an initiative within the European Commission, and hence it is also an open source. And if you look at the left-hand side on the FitSM parts, you have the core standards and you have the implementation aids. So if you do a foundation training within FitSM, you will learn about FitSM level 0, 1, and 2. So the overview, the vocabulary, the requirements, which are very, very important, and also the objectives and activities of the processes in scope. And then you have possibility to read about the role models and the implementation aids, being the templates and the implementation guides and the maturity, fitting the FitSM logic as you see as well on the slide. And also this slide also tries to cover then what is actually the scope of FitSM. When we say lightweight, when we say that it is practical, and when we say that it's very good for stakeholders within IT operation and support, Well, you see the FitSM process model. There are 14 processes within the FitSM best practice, and some of them are more operational, some are more tactical, and some are more strategic. But I mean, most of you that have been in contact with IT service management will all nod to these processes and say, yes, I recognize these, maybe with some different namings, but still you see the processes as such. And I think this is also the strength of FitSM, because many of the other best practice frameworks that we see out there, they cover much more, and then it makes it a bit less practical, and it also makes it a bit more complicated to understand and see the dependencies and interfaces between the many processes and practices. Here you have the ones that really matters for the IT department, IT organization to deliver on the support and operation, being it within one single organization or a federated environment, as mentioned. And then just to take some examples from the open source material. So this is what you can find if you look into one process. And as an example, I took problem management. So what I find really, really good with FitSM on a foundation level is that you have very specific requirements for problem management, for requirements. And this in a federated environment is very important, that you can align across the various service providers what is required for problem management to be an effective process. There are, of course, important terms to problem management. There's also the phases of problem management, how you identify, how you do the root cause, how do you identify the workaround, how you initiate resolution. So there is the overall process activities as well. And that also, of course, is very good to be able to learn and to discuss. And finally, what in problem management is, of course, of very, very big importance is understanding interfaces to other processes, especially what do we do in incident management? What is then from incident management taken to problem management? How do we work in problem management with the analysis and the root cause and the workaround and the resolution, and from there to change management with the change request. So these kind of very, very hard dependencies between processes that you need to understand, and of course for your design and optimization of processes are quite clear in FitSM all the way through. So that, Ellie, was a very, very short introduction to what FitSM is, and maybe then also what it's not, because again, it has this very much focus on lightweight and the operational part of it. Yes, and then we would like to move on because we have our distinguished guest with us here today, Valerie. Hello, Valerie.
Hello, Matt. Thank you so much for having me. I think it's a great opportunity for me to share experience, and that's I'm really happy about that. So if I should tell a little bit about Dovista, we are a union of distinctive brands with strong local roots. And as you can see, we are part of the VKR group. The VKR group is consisting of two companies in two separate business areas. So one of them is Dovista and the other one is Frameworks. Dovista is producing vertical windows and exteriors. So that's our industry. And as you can see also in this representation, Dovista is a collection of companies. And we also, our vision is actually to become the #1 supplier of vertical windows and exterior doors in Europe. So this is happening through acquisition. That means that Dovista is constantly growing. We have 9 key markets in Europe, and we're aiming at becoming a top player in local markets by offering innovative and high quality solutions through an efficient delivery system. And I think that's about it in a nutshell to present Dovista. Then, of course, more relevant in this context, we have been looking into implementing ITSM within the organization. In an organization like us, which is growing and where the strategy is to keep growing, we have, of course, seen a need of streamlining and standardizing some of our processes. So in this IT service management context, we realize, of course, that the level of maturity can be very different. So the as-is situation, as it's represented on this picture, is that we have, let's say, 130 people in our IT organization, and they are based in 10 or more different countries, located even in 15 different entities. So that brings some complexity and diversity, and that's where the level of maturity is showing up. So that's obvious that we need to identify and implement a common way of working in order to become effective and efficient. Therefore, we started this ITSM project. The objectives was, of course, to build a robust framework in order to manage our IT services effectively. The scope is actually not the full IT, but more in the start, at least looking into the core processes. So incident management and major incident management, request management, problem management, change management. We also want to enhance the quality and efficiency of IT service delivery. We, of course, are aiming, and that's the most important, almost a common language to and a common way of working for the entire of the IT organization. As well as we've been looking into re-implementing or implementing our ITSM tool, all the way around in the IT organization, and of course, together with all the processes, the core processes I just mentioned earlier, with the aim at the end, of course, to improve the overall customer satisfaction. So that's what we are working on right now. We're looking into ITSM 1.0. And it's been quite a journey. And this journey actually has started with, we needed to establish the grounds for how we're gonna dig into that. And we all the project participants started with attending the FitSM course. Yeah.
Yes, and so you did. And it was, from my perspective, KPMG advising you in this journey, quite easy to see that this was the one that you were going for. There were so many things that you mentioned now, Valerie, that made it spot on to say, okay, I really, really recommend FitSM for you instead of other best practices. We saw the map of Dovista business units before, and you also said you work by mergers and acquisitions. Very often when we see these kind of approaches to the market, you buy to get market gains, to get the market shares, to sell to the various countries, but you don't really align internally, be it within IT, be it within HR and other support functions. So this, of course, makes that the maturity in the various IT teams is very different. So it's very, very important to get aligned. And we could also see that it was the basic processes where you really needed to focus from the start. So that's why for me it was quite easy to say, well, FitSM really makes you focus on the operational support, operational processes in scope. And yes, as you said, we have been working during the autumn with incident and request and problem and change and config management. Which for you, of course, are the main core processes to work.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then, I had the pleasure of training you on that FitSM Foundation course. And do you have any thoughts now, a couple of months later, on what you thought was
of course,
the training course?
Well, the first thing I'm thinking is that we, having this course helped us getting aligned and setting the scene a little bit for the project, and as we mentioned earlier, because of how the organization looks like, the maturity level are so different, and it was important for us to, identify the right level. Where are we and where do we want to get? So in order to be able to start this journey and have the same understanding and the same knowledge of the processes that we had in scope for at least 1.0, we had this great opportunity to attend this FitSM course, where actually after the course we all ended up with having the same cards in our hands. So we're at the same level with working with the same references. So really, FitSM has been spot on for us, Dovista. It also confirmed that we were on the right tracks. It has also helped us highlighting which areas where we need to have most focus, because when going through the course, then we realize, okay, this is really where we have big holes and we need to put attention on that. So it's been really great, also because FitSM is making the whole process much easier. I was actually talking to some colleagues about it, and because the approach is so lightweighted, as you mentioned, and at the same time that it covers in our specific case, it really covered the basic of ITSM and the concepts and the processes were really well explained by also avoiding the complexity of maybe you could find in ITIL if you've looked into that before. So, and at the same time, it was providing a practical approach to ITSM. So that's where we really found ourselves, and it really made the process much easier. And those colleagues I was talking to that actually had an experience in ITIL before, they were really happy and kind of, relieved that it was not going to be just another big headache for them to get into it.
Yeah, glad to hear. Yes, and also what we used it for, as you said, for the common language and getting all the same cards to work with. One of the first things we did in the project was in a maturity assessment of ASIS. Where were you on the various processes in the various business units? And I do believe that exercise that we did together over a couple of workshops, also when we now had the common language from FitSM, went much faster, and we're actually quite aligned on what we meant in the various processes for the various maturity steps, which of course then makes it much easier to understand. So what's the gap we need to bridge when we go into to the project of then harmonizing the processes across the business units? Yeah. So those were good outcomes of a FitSM training from on foundation level, Ellie. You're on mute, I think. I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, bound to be me, wasn't it? They're great outcomes, Mats, and thanks for sharing from both yourself and Valerie. We have a couple of questions coming in to the chat from our audience. Shall we go to those questions now? While the poll is showing for the audience to be able to give us some feedback as well, we'll take some questions, I think. Is that okay with you?
Brilliant. Absolutely.
Okay, so first question is from Meta, and Meta asks, how long is or was your implementation project, and how did you divide it into waves, for example, basic operational processes?
Do you want to start, Valerie? The implementation process.
I think it all depends about your maturity levels to start with, So for us, and we also, we divided right now in 1.2 and 2.0. So right now we are in the progress of 1.2, and we started in the autumn, and we are going live in at the start of March. So yeah, a few months, but it also depends on the complexity of the tool you choose. You know, there's a lot of factors that will come into this, that will have some kind of meaning for your own implementation. I guess it all depends what solution you choose, right? So in our case, we decided to choose a specific tool, and it's a tool we have been using for a while. We've been using for a while, so it's an upgrade of the tool at the same time that we need to re-implement the processes across the old organization, but also implement it through the new organization. So I think it will all depend. I can only share our experience with you, and it takes a lot of work and a few months until now.
And to add to that, I mean, the process design we did quite fast, less than 1.5 months. But for the tool implementation, you actually choose to use your own resources within the organization. So you had no help from any vendor or partner. And that is, of course, resources that needs to be taken out of normal operation and projects. But I think it's a very good journey you've on, because now you're really into the nitty-gritty of each process and the reports and the outcomes and the stages and phases of each process. You own them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is our approach, and it is taking longer. I have to say that, you know, designing the processes and finding out where we wanted to get was actually the fastest process, you know, and it was quite clear where we want to get. But of course, because we chose this approach with using our own resources and upgrading our own tool right now, so that's what's taking longest. But at the end of the day, as you say, Mass, we are quite in control, and we have a great knowledge of our own processes, and they will be very well implemented thanks to that.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mats and Valerie. Mette, I hope that answer was helpful for you. We have another question from the audience from Thomas. Thomas asks, being plus 130 headcount in IT is for me mid-size, and KPMG explains that FitSM is lightweight. Can you elaborate about your decision process for using FitSM?
Well, it doesn't have to do with the number of FTEs in a specific organization if FitSM is lightweight or not. We have done FitSM trainings for much bigger organizations and also smaller organizations. It is lightweight in the way that it describes the processes and the process model in itself. It's lightweight in the way that it really bases the model on some requirements. So for each process, there are between 2 to 8 requirements, and you don't need to go into specific details of each individual process. It is much more understanding the concept, understanding the main process with the main phases, just as I showed you for problem management. So that's the lightweight about it.
Okay. Thank you, Mats. We have another couple of questions we'll just crack on with. So we have a question from Helen, which kind of comes in 2 parts. First part of Helen's question is, do you have any numbers to share how many organizations have adopted FitSM as part of their ITSM agenda? And the second part of the question is, also curious to hear how lightweight combines with being an ecosystem with vendors with mature ITIL implementations. So for the first part of that question, Helen, we have a large number of case studies of organizations that have been using FitSM and the adoption that they've used with the product. What we'll do is we'll send out a link to some of those case studies after this session, so you can take a look at that. And for the second part of your question, I'll hand back over to Mats to answer that part.
Yes, thank you very much, Ellie. Yes, so I have here from KPMG in Denmark, we have at least one use case where we really use FitSM also when we have multiple service providers having a mature IT service management implementation. And it worked really good in a SIAM setup. We used this for the sourcing of a new main sourcing provider to the client. We actually used the requirements from FitSM, because we wanted not to dictate what the detailed process activities should be of the various sourcing providers, but we were very, very clear on the input and output and governance around the processes. This made it much easier for both the client to see what do we get from the processes, and for the sourcing providers to come with their unique selling points and way of working that then could match the SIAM context of collaboration. So actually we could fit each other, we could fit each other much better, because we gave to the service provider the opportunity to showcase how they work with these processes, instead of us from a client perspective trying to dictate the processes.
That's great. Thanks very much for the answer to that one, Matt. One more question we have in the chat from Heinrich. Does your organization do agile projects, for example, development? If yes, how did they find the FitSM approach? That one might be more for you, Valerie.
Valerie, do you want to?
Oh, that was, yeah, of course. But well, not in the IT technology. We are not doing agile right now.
Okay.
And I think the extra to that one is that while we are with FitSM focusing on the operation and support processes, which is then not so much the development processes, we do have, for example, for Dovista, a quite clear handshake and dependency in the change process, where you have a lot of business applications, SAP and ERP systems, where we do have development that needs to come into to the change process, and we have not found any difficulties in matching those change and release process.
Great, thanks so much, Matt. That's all the questions that we have for now. Let's move on with the presentation, and we'll maybe come to some more at the end.
Okay. Yes, let's see if I can. It's me. So this was okay. Here it was. Okay, so then yeah, just to finish off a bit and to sum up, I'd like to mention to you all the benefits that I've seen during the last couple of years that I worked with FitSM, and what I hear also from the clients that we're providing this training for, and also then afterwards working to adapt in the projects. It is this lightweight approach. It is really something that very many easily can see, okay, this is what it is. This is what we need to align around. These are the processes. This is actually what we need. We don't need all the rest that goes on within IT, be it in design and development and strategy. We need the things that we are working on every day. Those need to work. And in FitSM, they are fit for use and purpose. We see a very high trend towards open source. That is something that clients evaluate high. So I mean, you can just go to fitsm.eu and download the material, be it the foundation material, be it the role model. There's no cost to it, which also means that all kind of training is, of course, less expensive. So that's a really good one to have an open source and a community around that. I believe that this focus on requirements that is within FitSM is really spot on. The standard of ISO 20000 that we've been looking into is a bit too heavy being a standard, but in the FitSM context, using many of those requirements in the process really makes good sense, because there's a bridge now between the requirements and the actual processes. And as I mentioned to the answer to the question, we really see this valuable in SIAM context when we have a federated environment, being more business units, like in Dovista case, or when you have numerous multiple service providers that need to collaborate across, not only between customer and service provider, but across service providers. And finally, as also Valerie has mentioned a couple of times now, that it is operational and to the point. That is really something almost all can say, okay, I get this, I understand how it should be, and it's not overcomplicated in any way. It's a one-day training for foundation. And when I do this one-day training in foundation, we also have time for group exercises. So it's really not just bam, 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 going all through. There's actually time to look into some of the specific processes where we know that the organization needs to focus on, and also maybe to practice what we actually understand with the process.
Thank you, Mats, for the sort of benefits of FitSM as a service management framework. We have a couple more questions coming in. So this first one is actually for Valerie from Heinrich again. Does Dovista use software as a service, for example, MS365 and similar? If yes, do you have a need for the change process?
Of course, we have a need for a change process. And we've always had a change process as well as I remember. So I think that it's quite obvious. And of course, we use this. I don't know, Mess, should we elaborate more on that? Or, but the answer is yes, we do have that.
Excellent. We've got a couple more questions, and the next one is also for Valerie from Meta. Following the earlier question, would you share which tool you're using?
Of course, we are using Service Desk Plus from Manage Engine.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And another question we have here. Could FitSM be a stepping stone on the road towards ITIL? Or would the difference in terms be so massive that it does not make sense? Mats, that's probably for you.
It could absolutely be a stepping stone. I see this in another organization as well. We use FitSM for aligning on the support and operational processes. And then there were specific individuals that needed much more understanding of the whole ecosystem landscape of practices and the life cycle and the service value system. And of course, then it can work as a stepping stone. There is not, I mean, again, as I said, it builds on ITIL version 2 and ISO 20000. So if you recognize ITIL version 2 in ITIL 4, well, absolutely, and you do.
That's great. Thank you very much, Mats. So that is all of our questions that we have from the audience today. We are coming to the end of our webinar now. So I would just like to ask both Mats and Valerie to share their kind of final thoughts with the audience for today. What would you like to leave everybody with? Let's start with you, Valerie.
Sorry. Yeah, but I would like, if I should say something, I have to say that this has been, until now, it's been a great journey. And I think that taking the FitSM course for us, as I said earlier today, it really has helped us establishing this base, you know, in order to really start the project and being at the same level, everybody having the same understanding, making sure that we really, you know, having the same vocabulary. And so just in order for the participant, at least of the project, to adopt the coming projects, that has been a great help, really. So. And of course, Mats is just a really great trainer, so it has made things even easier for us.
Yeah, that certainly helps, doesn't it? Thanks, Valerie. And Mats, your final thoughts for our audience today, please.
Well, I really believe that FitSM has been a very welcomed addition to the ITSM market because it is lightweight and because it is flexible. It is really something that is easy to understand in one day and then actually go on from there. And I sure hope that many more will take the training to get this alignment that Valerie is talking about in Dovista. because it will help us all to mature within the ITSM sphere.
Thanks so much, Mats. Thank you to both yourself and Valerie for joining us today and for sharing your experience with our audience. And thank you to our audience today for joining us and being so engaged in the session. Some great questions. We will be sending out a version of the slides afterwards, and please, of course, do reach out if you'd like more information. We do have another event coming up in the next couple of weeks about FitSM, where we'll be looking at how it can help your organisation with the adoption of SIAM. That's coming up on the 21st of February, so please do join us for that. We'll look forward to seeing you then, and bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.